Welcome back. And this isn't even back. This video is the first of its kind. Very excited. A little nervous because I think I'm taking on something that's going to be quite difficult, if not impossible for me at the moment. But I recently stumbled upon the Jane Street puzzles. Jane Street Capital is a financial institution of sorts, but every month or two they release a puzzle. I don't know enough about them. I saw one on YouTube a little while ago and was interested. It seems like there are various themes that they address, and I figured I would give the March 2026 one a shot and see how it goes. So I'm already ready. I have my stylus and my stylee, and I'm ready to try this out. So let's hop right in. This is the puzzle. Let me just accept, I'm accepting all the cookies. Come find me, Jane Street, if you need to. And before we start, I've installed a little timer just to see how we're doing. I might give up if it's too hard and it takes too long, and it might be too hard and it might take too long. I did a brief read of just a scan of the topic. I hope it's readable. I'm going to zoom in here just because I want everyone else to be able to see what's going on, and I'm not convinced you can. On my little preview screen here, it's pretty blurry. Okay, before I get into it, let me start the timer with whatever combination of keys. Okay, it's the same one for the print menu, and we're off to the races. This one is called Planetary Parade. We are enjoying a planetary parade during the beginning of this month here on Earth, but my alien friend from the distant planet Pernot, is that a pun? Pernot? Well modeled as a perfect sphere, that's nice, isn't too impressed. Their single star system has 6 planets other than Pernot, with such chaotic orbits that each night these planets independently appear in uniformly random locations in the Pernothian sky. The planets are not visible in daylight. If at a given moment there exists somewhere on Pernot that all 6 planets are visible, then from my friend's position on the surface, they have an alpha probability of also seeing all of the planets. My friend is considering building a tower to improve their chances of seeing these planetary parades. Assume the tower allows the viewing of every celestial body that could be seen from at least one location on the surface of Pernot less than a distance r from the base of the tower. In the limit of r being small compared to the radius big R of Pernot. The new probability of seeing the planetary parade from the top of the tower is linearly approximated by alpha plus beta times r over big R. Find alpha and beta in exact terms. Okay, very concerning, obviously. Anyone who's anyone would probably look at this and be concerned. My main concern is that I haven't done trigonometry, or much geometry for that matter, in my past few years. So I'll be remembering everything from high school and whatever college math I was taking. Additionally, I know that 3 dimensions has a lot of tricks. It's not so simple as 2 dimensions, because they added a dimension. And the example I'm thinking of now is that if you have, let's say, a square, if you have a square and you're uniformly distributing points within that square, you can get away with taking a random x and a random y, and that'll be a uniform distribution. On a sphere, however, it's a little more complicated because and there we go. Sorry it was silent for a little bit. Anyway, you cannot get away with such approaches as taking a random latitude and longitude. That would put a lot more at the poles. You also can't just take a random X, Y, and Z because that might not fall on a sphere, and various other things. So I'm hoping that since we're just looking at probabilities, maybe we can simplify it a little bit and avoid doing any three-dimensional trigonometry. But it is modeled as a perfect sphere, so already concerned. All right, let's hop right in. I got my pen. Okay, I'm going to start by just talking about some assumptions that I think I need to make. So here's one. That's our planet. Now, okay. So let's say you are, let's add a layer. This is a first try here. Let's say you are right here, right on the top of the planet in this frame of reference. What stars can you see? Now, or what planets can you see? Now, clearly, oh no, all right, bear with me. Where is my line? So if you imagine that you're very small compared to the size of the circle, and we pretend that that is a perfect tangent line, you might say that you only see planets that are in this region. I'm very frustrated with my choice here. In this region. And you'd be right. And similarly, if you're on the bottom, you would say you can only see planets in that region and not here in this region. So in reality, that's true. But as you get to very big distances, you have something that looks a little more like this, where the circle that you live on is small and such that, and the distances to a planet over here, what I'm trying to say is the portion of the night sky that you cannot see as you get to increasingly large distances approaches zero. And so my assumption is that when you're standing on a point on this planet's surface, you can see exactly half of all of the sky. And what I'm saying is that in reality, that's not true exactly, because you don't see the height of your planet. You know what I mean? Or half the height of your planet worth of sky, of that half. Hopefully that makes sense. So let me just write that. And let's see what we got. So up here we have assumption. Oh, you can't see that. Oh, you can, but not really. We'll write it over here. Ignore my handwriting. Assumptions. Can see half of the sky. Right? Exactly half. So that's not real, but for most purposes, I think that's going to be real. Another assumption, just because it mentioned day versus night. So, yep, okay. So I'm going to say, let's imagine the sun is like this. This is how close it is, right? So you could say, let me get our lines here, that from whatever point of the sun we feel looks tangent, no, that's not what I want. Something like that. This is a light being cast. You'll notice that it seems that more of the Earth or the planet is illuminated than not illuminated. Similarly, if the sun was smaller than the planet, less of the planet would be illuminated than not. However, at super large distances, it really approaches perfectly half illuminated and half not illuminated. Additionally, as we know in reality, as the sun sets, there's a blur of time where you can actually see the stars, right? When it's daytime, it starts becoming darker, the sun sets, then it takes a bit to get dark enough to where you can see the stars. I don't think they want us to think about that. They haven't provided any of those measurements. So I'm going to say it's binary. It's either daytime and you can't see stars, or it's nighttime and you can see stars. How do we like that? So that's not the thing that I wanted. I would usually do this on paper and then have a little bit less difficulty. All right, so half of the planet is day or night, or day and night. Additionally, instant night, day-night change. Does this all make sense? I'm just trying to, and by the way, I haven't started to solve any of this, so impossible to know if this is going to be a big waste of time and I spend most of my effort assuming things. What else should we assume? Okay, this isn't an assumption, but for the sake of ease, and this is a two-dimensional circle, as all circles are, not a sphere. But imagine this was a sphere, and we had a star up there, whenever I say star, I mean planet. Obviously, we can think of it as three-dimensional and work with angles. However, I think it's actually going to be easier to just map them to a point on the surface of the planet. So this star might be this point, this star might be this point, and then because we're saying it's half of the sky, we could say that any planet on the hemisphere surrounding our person is visible to that person. How do we like that? Okay, so the first challenge, from what I understand, is we want to see if at any given moment there exists somewhere on Piernot that all 6 planets are visible, then from my friend's position on the surface, they have an alpha probability of also seeing all of the planets. Okay, so we're going to try and find alpha first. Now, I think it would be smart to start in 2 dimensions just to see if we can't conceptualize it a little better. We're also going to, let's start with 1 star and see what that probability looks like. Or I guess, let's start with this. Here we have, this is going to be the hemisphere that this is not the friend. This is the person who can see all of the planets. All right, let's see how we want to do this. So I guess if we were to pick a random, ignoring the day-night, I have a feeling that the day-night will just take the probability and cut it in half at the end of the day. Right? Because it's pretty much a 50% chance that you're in the day versus the night. We don't get any information about the orientation of the people in relationship to the sun, or where the equator is, or the axis of rotation. Not that it would change the math, but it would make me have to think more. So I think that if we choose a random spot on the planet, what are the chances that the planet is in both of those visible hemispheres? So right now we know all the planets are in this half, evenly distributed or uniformly distributed. Okay, let's imagine this case where your friend is standing right here, and the other case where they're standing at the same point as... I guess the other assumption real quick is that we can treat the exterior planets as points. There's no chance that you either see it or you don't. It's either, and it's not so big that you can see part of it and maybe two people on opposite sides of the planet can see the same planet. So I'm going to say other planets are points. Okay, so in this case, if your friend's down here, they have there's zero overlap between their two hemispheres. So there's no location where a planet can be seen by both people. Of course, if they're in the same spot, there's 100% chance that they can see the same. I guess the other base case would be, or a simple case would be, let's say you're standing right here at the edge. Then your hemisphere would be that, and so let's call this the first person's hemisphere. This is the last person's hemisphere, or the second person's hemisphere. So a quarter of the planet is seen by both. Half of the original region is seen by the new person, one half. Okay, so if they're evenly distributed in this half, there's a 50% chance that you see the same star. Okay, good. In fact, check this out. All right. We're gonna imagine... I should have my eraser at the ready. Oh, that's a giant eraser. No, bad. Over here, is that a good one? Oh yeah. And what's the quick access for the pen tool? Brush tool is B. Eraser is E. Okay, good. So what I'm realizing, I think, is that for every point on the circle, at least, let's say this point, there's an opposite point. That's the easy part. And if you look at the two halves, so this one overlaps this much, this one on the right overlaps that much, but because they're both sections of one hemisphere, these shaded regions, the average is going to be half, right? Imagine this is 25. This one, if you're here, there's a 25% chance, let's say, that a star falls in that region. But if you're here, there's a 75% chance that it falls within the region. So the average between these 2 points is a 50% chance that it falls between the regions. And I think that's true for every point on the circle. So for example, the points we looked at before, 0% chance and 100% chance up here. If you look at both those points, on average, it's 50% chance or 50% overlap of the original region. So I am going to say that, let's see, for all points on the sphere, on the circle, there is a 50% chance. There's an average 50% chance that a planet visible to, let's call him A, for all points B, there is an average 50% chance that a planet visible to A is visible to B. Does that make sense? So for one planet, and it's just like flipping a coin. If you do it multiple times, you're multiplying the probabilities together of any certain outcome. So if you have 2 planets, it should be a 25% chance or a 0.25 probability that that you'll be able to see both planets that the other person sees. Okay. Now let's think about a sphere. So, can we say the same thing? I think we can. Because for every... So if you have point A, you have a hemisphere of the sky that it can see. For any point B, you'll get a certain part of overlap. But you're guaranteed that the opposite hemisphere across from B has the rest. It has the rest of the overlap. And so on average, I think you have half of the first hemisphere overlapped by the second hemisphere. Is that crazy to say? So I'm gonna trust that, I think. Let me get a little bit of a bigger eraser. Excuse my erasing. I don't know what's easiest, to hit undo a million times or not. So we have 6 stars, planets. So I'm going to say so the probability of one overlap is, and we'll call that P1, even though that seems terrible. My math terminology is not ready for this. Is 0.5. Right, it's half a chance, or it's equally as likely that it will overlap than it won't. So for P of 6 overlapping is P1 to the 6th power equals whatever that is, 1 over 2 to the 6th. So 2, 4, oops, I was gonna 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64 equals 1/64th. But it's, and then we do P6 times the probability of it being daytime, right? Then it's going to be 1 over 128. So I think for 6 planets, the probability that the 6 planets visible, we're saying it's given that it's visible that they're all visible to one person. Uniformly distributed in that hemisphere. Now, part of me thinks that was a little too simple. You know, it seems like something that you can't just get a coin flip, 6 coin flips and you're done, because it's spherical geometry. But it does have the nice balance that there are, for every point, there is another point with the inverse probability. And I'm going to go for this, and it's probably going to be wrong. So we're going to say, and let's just make sure that alpha talks about day versus night. So I'm going to say alpha equals 1 over 128. Let's just re-look at this. Oh yeah, look, I can scroll with this thing. Single star system has 6 planets other than Purnot with such chaotic orbits that each night these planets independently appear in uniformly random locations in the Purnothian sky. The planets are not visible in daylight. If at a given moment there exists somewhere on Purnot that all 6 planets are visible, so that was point A, location A, then from my friend's position on the surface at point B, they have a alpha probability of also seeing all the planets. Now, I think the easy trap, since I'm not like a logician or a statistician, is saying like, oh, picture a scenario where picture this scenario where this is point A and I'm over here at point B, right? We're just going to do one of these. It's like, there's like no chance that all 6 are going to be here. But you have to remember it's the average. So if instead point B was here, you might say, oh, there is a pretty big chance actually that they're all here, right? That's a pretty big angle that we're overlapping. So I think, but it's similar to flipping a coin where, yeah, for one planet, 50-50, you know, it sort of feels like it makes sense, right? Because for one planet, it's like either you're on the same side as that planet randomly, or you're not. And if you were to do that 6 times, it just compounds. It would be hard to get all 6. So I'm happy that alpha, let's see, oh, look at this perfect square. And by square, I mean, Oh, it did a few lines there. So we have alpha is 128. I have a feeling that is going to be the easier part. My friend is considering building a tower to improve their chances of seeing these planetary parades. Assume that the tower allows the viewing of every celestial body that could be seen from at least one location on the surface. That could be seen from at least one location on the surface of the planet, less than the distance r from the base of the tower. In the limit of r being small compared to the radius r, big R of Pyrnot, the new probability of seeing the planetary parade from the top of the tower is linearly approximated. It's like, I don't know if you feel the same way. It's like, as I keep reading, the words keep entering my mind, and less am I able to really buy into what it's saying. Okay, let's just break it up. Assume the tower allows the viewing of every celestial body that can be seen from at least one location on the surface of Pyrnot less than a distance r from the base of the tower. Okay. Now let's find, delete. So I'm going to do what I like to call a bigger circle. It's what we in the industry call a bigger circle. I'm going to put it over here. It's there. Let me find it. How was that so small? No, not what I wanted. Okay.
I understand perfectly.
Now. Okay. I made it too big. What am I doing? Okay, let's see what we got here. Let's up the stroke a little. How do you like that stroke? Okay, so what I think that's saying is that the following. Let us say the tower is here. Instead of just being able to, and let's say this is two-dimensional geometry. All right, that's good enough for me. I like that. So this is a hemisphere. It's saying that if you're in the tower, you can see every body that could be viewed from points within R from the tower. So let's say, all right, this is the dream. I wish I could make the curly braces. Let's see how it goes. Oh, I'm so nervous. Whoa. I gotta be more fluid. Just a little mountain range. All right. This is R. Everyone get it? Everyone with me? Nope, sorry. That is R. So R goes to here and R goes to here. That means you get the view, the combined view, and we'll pretend it's a sphere. Right? So you get the combined view of any person within this circle. And I think what that means is if you imagine the limits of that, and we'll switch to the old line tool for this, that you actually have the ability to see, for example, if you're at the bottom point, you have the ability to see, and I'll do the other one. Imagine this is the top point, where this distance is R between here. That was a little better, but I put the R on the wrong side, so it's R. And you have the ability on this side to view r further as well. So, and you imagine that on a sphere. The hemisphere, which usually stops at the halfway point, is an extra r distance down. And I think that what's going to help with the math is the fact that little r is much smaller, is very small. Small enough compared to big R that I think you can actually say that this is a straight line. This is not a curved R. That the R is linear. Right? And I think that's going to help because when we're finding the areas, I think if I remember the math, I'll stick with this. If I remember the math, it will be, and we'll imagine that that is all good up there. I think we'll want to say that this distance is also r. The distance in the center of the circle or the sphere is also r. I think that's what is going to be helpful because you wouldn't be able to say that with a big little r. Because let's say little r came out to here, right? Imagine this was r, like whatever, r2. It's curved enough that in a straight line, r2 would actually come out to here, right? Imagine, right? If it wasn't curved. And so then you know that R2 in a straight line is not actually, this is not equal to R2, right? Because R2 in a straight line is actually longer than, let's call it the x component of, or the linear component of this curve. Does that make sense? I think that's the benefit of having little r be sufficiently small compared to big R, right? Because you can, while it's small, the differences between R, the arc length of R, the whatever x component of the arc length R, and the x component of a line R is negligibly small. So I think that's something to keep in mind. Hopefully that makes sense. And I was thinking about that big picture because I think we are going to have to find out the overlaps. And we're actually going to have to compare surface areas as opposed to just saying half. Half is very easy. Okay, everyone with me? Okay. Okay. I am going to have to do a Google search, but I do know what I want to Google search, and hopefully that is not a disqualifying factor. Let's get this to be a smaller circle. In fact, let's get our old circle back. And let's make it a little bigger. Oh, I didn't mean that. Okay, let's make it a little bigger. And we're gonna just go, we're gonna remember what we learned about circles, but we're gonna think in terms of spheres. And we're gonna say, I don't have a lot of room here. I was moving too fast. In fact, give me this one up here. Okay, good. So we're going to say the area of the sphere is, this one I don't need to Google. This one is 4/3 pi r, and this is big R. We'll just skip the substitution phase. This is big R cubed. That's the area, the surface area. The surface area of the sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. Now, I think I remember what it's called. Obviously, a hemisphere surface area is the half of that, so 2/3 pi r cubed. But if we have, we'll make it big for this. I didn't want that. Yeah, okay. I pressed it too many times. What is the surface area if we imagine this being here? That's the hemisphere. What is the surface area of that? And if I recall, that kind of area, I think that's called, yeah, okay. It's called a spherical cap. Okay, so I'm going to Google the formula for the area of a spherical cap. If that's considered cheating, I'm sorry. That's not something I'm going to be able to calculate on my own. And I don't know if everyone is expected to have that formula at the ready. So, sue me. Okay. Let's see. Surface area of a spherical cap. Okay, not interested, not right now. The surface area of a spherical cap, the curved portion, excluding the base, so the interior circle, is determined by the formula A equals 2 pi r h, where h is the vertical height of the cap. Okay, that's a good, simple formula. That's all the information I'm going to take for now. So, the surface area of a cap is, oh my god, I was so focused on reading that I forgot to actually pay attention. It's 2 pi r h? 2 pi r h, okay, good. Equals 2 pi r h. Now, the h in this case, if we're saying that this distance is little r, this distance is big R, then the h and the r here is big R, we would say equals 2 pi, I'm going to put parentheses for readability, that's an r, and then the h is r minus little r. Okay. Let's look at our base cases again. If they're at the same point, if they're both at the point A, what is the overlap of the regions? That one's a simple one, right? So both at A overlap, let's call it. It's going to be the smaller of the two regions, right? Because we want to know what percentage of the original hemisphere does the new person's viewing area cover. And if they're both at the same point, then I'll do it in percentages, 100% of the hemisphere. Imagine we're at opposites. Then one person's down here, the original hemisphere is up here, point A, let's call it. And so the overlapping region is going to be whatever is in this area, right? So we actually want this surface area in that case. So that would be the surface area of the hemisphere minus the surface area of the cap that we're talking about, the rest of the cap. Oh yeah, I guess I did calculate the other half. I mean, I calculated the invisible half as a spherical cap, as opposed to the visible majority. And yeah, maybe that's the only thing you can do. I'm not sure if you can calculate with that same formula if the shape is still called a half, if it's more than a hemisphere. But anyway, the opposite, what we're doing is taking the area of a hemisphere, which is 2/3 pi big R cubed. Oh no! Wait, sorry. Before I haven't done anything irrecoverable. However, that's the volume of a sphere, and I guess I don't know the surface area of a sphere. Sorry. Of a sphere. 4 pi r squared. 4 pi, oh, no, that's not what I was thinking of. So I'm glad we looked at that. We're actually gonna erase this. Apologies to everyone involved. We're going to do 4 pi big R squared. So the hemisphere is 2 pi big R squared minus the cap, which is 2 pi let's factor it out. So we have minus 2 pi, well, this is nice, r squared minus 2 pi big R little r, right? Because we're taking 2 pi, we're taking big R times 2 pi minus little r times big R times 2 pi. And that equals, of course, just because it cancels out, it just equals 2 pi r is, right, that's the actual area, and we're looking at what portion of the hemisphere does that cover. So we're going to say the probability at opposite ends equals that over 2 pi r squared, which equals, I think we could just cancel a few things out, r over r. So, alright, so now we have two cases. We're going to summarize our findings. Yeah, so we're going to call this the band. We're going to call this the band. I know that's small. You don't really need to read it or be able to read it. This is the cap. The whole thing's a hemisphere. So we're going to do the surface areas of the hemisphere is 2 pi r squared. Surface area of the cap is, we'll leave it unfactored or whatever it's called, expanded maybe, is 2 pi r minus big R minus little r, and the surface area of the band is what did we just say? It's 2 pi r. Does that make sense? Yes, it does. It does. It's still a square. It's still a two-dimensional thing because r's are both distances. I was wondering where the squared went, but it's still there. So then it's 2 pi r big R. Okay, so now we can get rid of a few things just to clean up and give us some more space. Apologies if this is not organized for you. So now let's over here. The probability at same spot is 1. The probability at opposite is little r over big R, right? And okay, good. That's what we have so far. I feel like we're making good progress, but I think the challenge is yet to come. Because what we said before is that the average without the tower was easily half, because there was no overlap, but there was complete coverage between the two hemispheres of the point that you're at and then the point in theory that you could be at on the other side. However, now there's overlap, right? So it's not saying they'll average to 2, or they'll average to half, and we can see that because the average of the same side and the opposite, at least in that one case, is going to be whatever, one whatever. Little r big R over big R squared, 2 big R squared rather, or something. It's going to be slightly more than half. I'd love it if that was the same. So let's check another case. Let us check. It should be a relatively simple one. Let's check the one where we are exactly 90 degrees away from the point in question. So in that case, okay, I'm going to, because we know that they are the same on opposite points. I would love them to be the same average as between 1 and R over big R. I'm going to do a little bit of erasing. Don't be sad. We'll have to remember what we talked about. So here we have the hemisphere. Here we have more than a hemisphere and a band, as we like to call it. Okay, so when you're here, the chances are whatever this bigger region is, the overlap. So let's calculate the surface area of that region. It'll be a hemisphere plus a band divided by 2. So let's do that. Here the overlap is hemisphere plus a band. So 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r big R over 2. Right, so we can cancel out all the 2's. We get, I'm just making it multiple steps because I'm not ready to do something else. Pi r r, and of course that is pi r big R plus little r is the overlap between these regions, and the probability is that r plus r, that's a pi. Sorry, Archimedes. It's that over the total area of the hemisphere. So that's 2 pi r squared equals big R plus little r over 2r, 2 big R. So the probability that a single star will overlap on when you're at 90 degrees apart, apart, is this. Let me double check that is, and that's going to be the same on the other side. So of course the average of those two is big R plus little r over 2 big R. Let me just double check that the average of, so that the average of these on same point versus opposite point of the observer is the same. I'm praying. So the average of those is 1 plus little r over big R over 2. Could be, could be not. Let's try and consolidate. We have r plus r over big R over 2. Okay, right? Because you multiply the 1 by big R over big R to get a common denominator. So the numerator is big R plus little r over big R over 2. Of course, you can say that it's not, okay, yeah. Yes, of course, you can multiply the big R and, sorry, that's just the simplest math problem that we've talked about. This is equal to 2 big R, which is the same. So that's a good sign. The working hypothesis is that the average, and let me see what they were talking about, linearly approximated. Oh, okay. So, in the limit of R being small, the new probability of seeing the planetary parade from the top of the tower is linearly approximated by alpha plus beta times R over big R. So I think we'll find the new probability, and we'll have to rework it back to find beta, I'm hoping. I mean, that's just really the hope. So I'm just going to keep that over here. Alpha plus beta. Oh my god, let me work on my beta. That's just a B. That's a beta. Oh, you can't even see it. What am I doing? Let me move this a little farther over, and I'll write it down. Can you see here? Yep. So the new probability, let's see, P tower equals alpha plus beta times little r over big R. I'm really hoping, right? Little r over big R. Find alpha and beta in exact terms. Okay, we're close. So the working hypothesis, we can say we'll remember that we've proven, or we'll actually just write a little note. Average equals, we'll draw some arrows as they do on the formal math proofs. Big R plus R over 2 big R. So we'll remember that we found that. We'll also say the probability of it at 90 is also equal, conveniently, to R plus little r over 2R. My current hypothesis is that any opposite points on the sphere together will have an average probability of, or each pair, the average probability between the two, whatever, you understand what I'm saying, is this R, big R plus R over 2 big R. So that is the hope. I wonder if it's worth trying it on. The math just gets more complicated if you were to try another angle. But are those 2 cases, 3 cases, whatever, of opposite points enough? 2 cases, either same point, opposite point, or 90 degree, 90 degree. Are those enough to generalize? And I want to say, feels like it, but no. I would be taking a shortcut if I didn't do another example. Unless I can, like, prove it. And I'm not, I mean, why would I say that? There's no chance I'm going to do a full proof. I think my best bet is to try another example. How would you do that? Because I can't even. Okay, let me see if what I'm about to say, because maybe we can make use once again of the fact that we are at a very small little r. So I'm wondering, here we have our hemisphere. That one's not a good hemisphere. That was a little better. When you guys eat black and white cookies, what's your preferred method? That's leave a comment in chat, in the comments, about your preferred black and white cookie method, and I will reveal mine in chat if someone asks. That's your incentive. Okay, let's imagine a point or 2 points here and here. We are going to bring out the line tool. These are 45 degree points. What was that? How bad is my circle? Let's do it from here. Not bad. And of course I'll do both my sets of, that looks pretty good. And okay. So can we say, and we're going to be looking X-ray vision through, the sphere. So obviously this is the original. Oh, it's going to be messy. Or I'll just do the overlapping region. We are going to first talk about this region. So in fact, apologies, I'm going to get rid of that. Can we say the overlapping region is obviously a sum of, or includes this region where the two hemispheres overlap? That one should be easy to calculate because it's just a quarter of a hemisphere, right, at 45 degrees. Additionally, let's break this up. Can we say it's also a sum of half of a band, and it's sum of this. If we know, we do. So if we know, right, let's zoom in. How do I zoom in? I'm going to try zooming in here. So we know that this angle is 45 degrees. Of course, we've just made it so that this is 90. So this is 45 degrees. So this, even though it's on a sphere, this area should be able to be calculated as a triangle if by using the same assumption that we made in the first part, that r is small enough that we can treat it as a straight line, even though it's on a sphere. So the total area would be the total surface area of the overlap would be the hemisphere overlap, hemisphere plus half of a band plus 2 of those triangles. Oh wow, 2 triangles is a square, and it's a square of side length r, little r. What a beautiful thing. So, and we know, oh, this is a quarter hemisphere, and by 1/2 I mean 1/4. So I think the overlap, oh, I'm very excited. This should be more than this number, because when we do it on the other side, or rather, this will be less. The other side will be more. We'll do a subtraction, and then we'll average those two. Okay, we're in it. So the overlap is half of a quarter of a hemisphere. So that's pi r squared over 2. So pi big R squared over 2 plus a half of a band. So plus pi r big R plus r squared, little r squared. Okay? That's going to cancel out. Right? Because we have 2 isosceles right triangles of side length little r, one on this side and one X revision to the back. Now let's talk about, so I'm going to write that here, P1 overlap is pi big R squared over 2 plus pi r big R plus r squared. Okay, good. Now we look at the opposite point. So we'll get rid of this stuff, and we will move B V. Time to bring out the good old mouse. Now we're looking at it from this side. So the overlapping region is as follows. It's going to be, let me get my layer. I'm actually very excited about this. So we have 3/4 of a hemisphere. So overlap equals 3/4 hemisphere plus, now I know, bear with me, plus a band, except for one of those triangles, or two of those triangles. So it's plus a half of a band minus two triangles. So when we look at that, that's going to be equals, I'm being silly, it's going to be 3 pi r squared over 2 plus the band 2 pi little r big R minus little r squared. Okay, so that's the P2 overlap. So these are another set of opposing points to build our hypothesis and hopefully not disprove it. So we have 3 pi big R squared over 2 plus 2, oh no. It's a half of a band. So look at that perfect erasing. Plus another pi r big R minus r squared. And we want to take the average overlap between those 2 points. So the average, I'm going to write it all out so we don't miss anything, it's all over 2. What is it? Shift? Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much freehand. So we have, I'm going to combine like terms as we go here just to make it easier to look at. We're going to do so to combine the first like terms, we're doing 4 pi r squared over 2, right? That's these two, plus 2 pi r, and those cancel out, so that's all over 2. I'm going to erase that just to do a little more work. It's not looking good, everyone. It's not looking good at all, actually, I don't think. Let's split them up. So it's going to be on the left-hand side, we're going to combine the denominator and cancel out the 4. So the average is pi r squared plus pi r. Is that right? I'm going to have to be doing a big double check because that is... And let's just combine like term or factor. So we have pi r, or let's keep in the same order, r plus big R. It's not what I like to see. We're gonna go back to the old Zoom level. So we were hoping the average was big R plus R over 2 big R. What did I do wrong? I think I did bad math. That's how much I believe. That's how much I believe in the hypothesis. I wish I kept my math. Because that's the average overlap, but not the average probability, right? The average overlap is that. However, the average probability is that over one hemisphere. So we're doing pi r, big R plus r, sorry about my r's, that's been a lifelong problem, over 2 pi r squared. Let's see how far that gets us. And this is not a square, that's just on its own. I think we're looking good, actually. So we cancel the pi r's, so we have big R, oh my god, big R plus little r over 2 big R, and that is it. That is the average probability of seeing one single planet with the new tower formation. So this is going to be probability at 45. I'm so glad I didn't give up. Is also big R plus R over 2 big R. And because of that, I'm going to say that for any two opposing points, the average probability between the two of seeing the same star as another point is big R plus R over 2 big R. Very exciting. And of course, we have to do that 6 times. So let's say the probability of the tower, comma, 6 planets, comma, in the day-night cycle is R, big R plus little r over 2 big R to the 6th power. I can do divided by 2 or times 1 over 2. That gets us the day. Okay, so we are saying that there is a linear relationship between alpha, which is 1 over 128, through beta to little r over big R, and now we gotta find it. I am not excited. Let's write everything out. So let me recheck the instructions. Okay. The new probability of seeing the planetary parade from the top of the tower, which we just got, is linearly approximated by alpha plus beta times r over big R. Find alpha and beta in exact terms. Now, I do recognize this whole time I could be very far off from the correct solution, but I'm happy with the attempt. You know, I'm certain that I could be missing some big aspects, but I also feel like maybe not. Okay, so given alpha, or with alpha at 128, 1 over 100, 1/128th is what I was looking for. So we're saying the P tower, right? P tower equals alpha. So 1 over 128 plus plus beta little r over big R. Equals, I hope it's an equal sign. That equals what we just got here, which is big R plus little r over 2 big R to the 6th times 2, times 0.5. All right, let's just see what I can do for solving for beta with algebra. It's so hideous that I'm not sure. Okay, so here's what I got. Let me rewrite it. I'm pretty sure I made a mistake, but that's fine. You know, we did well. It comes down to a math thing, and either this is right. It would suck if it was right, but I made a mistake in the algebra. It's definitely possible that it's just wrong. Comprehensively wrong. So this is r plus little r to the 6th minus big R to the 6th all over 128 big R to the 6th little r. So that's what I like. And that's what I like for alpha. So let's see if I can't pull up. Let me move this over so I have access to it. And let's see what the submission looks like. Let's close that up for a sec. It's a limited, we'd be in little limited company here if we got it right. So I'm going to put this in, but I'll blur it out. Already got to start. So, okay. Yeah, put my name on a leaderboard if I get it. I wrote some of the assumptions. Had a lot of fun. Of course, I submitted alpha is 1 over 128 for the overall probability that the friend in a tower could see the parade. I got p equals 1/2. I got I hit the mic. I got this is what I wrote, and I'm sure I made a mistake. Excited to see the solution, appreciate the opportunity, and all of that is true. We'll call this done in 154:30 per the timer, and let's go ahead and submit. Please check back before the end of the month to see if you've correctly solved this month's problem. Yeah, and I guess that's all we can say. That's all we could say about it. So honestly, I took 2 hours to solve that, and I really enjoyed it. Of course, I don't know if it's solved. My math is rusty. This was definitely years out from doing any sort of geometry. This kind of geometry, like 8 years out from doing any of that. Of course, I use geometry casually, as we all do, in programming and whatever, but it's rare that I have to deal with anything like a sphere. And luckily, the probabilities seem to be easy enough. It was just ratios, the overlapping area over the total area kind of stuff. That's what's nice about a uniform distribution. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed my thought process. And I know this is a longer form video, but maybe that's interesting to some of you. Of course, if you've made it this far, I really appreciate it. I won't assume that this is something that everyone will want to watch, but I'd like to document this kind of effort because, otherwise, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't need anyone. I don't need any appreciation, but wanted to share it in case it's entertaining. Okay, so that's what I got for today. I hope to see you next month if there is another puzzle. Of course, I hope to see you today and tomorrow and the next day for the crosswords and the logic puzzles. So that'll be it, and I hope you have a good day, and I'll see you next time. Okay, bye.